When you start adding jet engine level power into muscle cars, that's when things start getting out of hand. And that is when you get muscle cars so dominant, so untouchable, that racing leagues have to step in and say, nope, you're done. But what if I told you there was a car so powerful it didn't just get banned, but it caused a rule change that still exists today? Before we get to that story, let's talk about a car that humiliated everyone at the track and paid the price for it. The Dodge Daytona wasn't just fast, it was aerodynamically evil. Built in 1969 with one goal in mind: dominate NASCAR. So what did Dodge do? They gave it a nearly 2-foot nose cone and a massive 23-inch rear wing, the tallest spoiler ever on a production car. It looked like a spaceship, and it performed like one. In testing, it became the first NASCAR vehicle to break 200 miles per hour. Suddenly, no other car could touch it. The Daytona and its cousin, the Plymouth Superbird, started lapping the competition. Literally, the governing body freaked out. These cars were too fast for the tracks and too expensive to compete against. So NASCAR dropped the hammer and banned winged cars with engines over 305 CI. Just like that, the Aero Warriors were gone. Fast forward to today, and collectors fight to the death to get one in their garage. But guess what? Dodge wasn't done pissing off racing officials, because in 2018 they made the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon. Built in 2018, this beast was basically a factory drag car with license plates. 840 horsepower on pump gas, 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. Quarter-mile time, 9.65 seconds right off the showroom floor. So what's the problem? It was too fast for the NHRA. According to their safety regulations, any car that runs under 9.99 seconds in the quarter mile must have a certified roll cage and other safety features. The Demon didn't have that. So what did the NHRA do? They banned it from competing in stock classes. Imagine building a car so fast it literally gets kicked off the drag strip. Dodge even leaned into the controversy in their ads, because when you build a car called Demon, you know exactly what you're doing. Now let's rewind to the car that turned pony cars into muscle cars in the first place, the Shelby GT500 KR. KR stands for King of the Road, and if you too are a king in your own roads, then you should definitely hit that subscribe button. Back in 1968, Carroll Shelby looked at the Ford Mustang and thought, cool, but what if it had way more power and scared people a little? So he stuffed a 428 Cobra Jet engine under the hood and gave it close to 400 horsepower unofficially. It dominated street races and local drag strips, but here's where it got dicey. Ford and Shelby started testing special lightweight versions of these GT500s for competition. And when local tracks caught wind of what these things could do, especially with modded heads, manifolds, and gear ratios, they began banning them from entry-level classes. Too powerful, too aggressive. The KR was more than a nickname, it was a warning. And speaking of warnings, Chevy was about to issue one. The Chevrolet Camaro ZL, one of 1969, wasn't built to sell. It was built to beat the rules. See, Chevy had a trick up their sleeve, the COPO system. It let dealers order custom builds straight from the factory even if they weren't listed in the brochure. So a few dealers ordered Camaros with the 427 CI aluminum ZL1 engine, originally built for Can-Am racing. The result? A street car that made over 500 horsepower in race trim and weighed less than anything else with that much muscle. It ran quarter miles in the 10-second with slicks and tuning. And just like that, race organizers started pushing it out of stock classes, calling it non-standard. Only 69 were ever made, because Chevy knew this thing was too wild for mass production. But in the right hands, it was nearly unstoppable. But Chevrolet wasn't done messing around. Enter the Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454 LS6. The 1970s was the peak of the muscle car wars, and Chevy decided to nuke the competition by creating the most powerful engine they ever dropped into a production car, the LS6 454 CI V8, making a factory-rated 450 horsepower. Although it's closer to 500, this thing did 13-second quarter miles bone stock in an era when most cars were lucky to break 16. It had so much torque, you could roast the tires in third gear. Track officials noticed, and just like that, some local and regional drag strips refused to classify it, claiming it was too heavily optioned for stock classes and too powerful for amateur events. It blurred the line between a street car and a drag racer, and that's exactly why it was quietly excluded from most sanctioned races. And remember that that demon car? Well, Buick built the car that gave Ford its ultimate racing nightmare, the Buick GSX Stage 1. Yes, Buick. Not Chevy, not Ford, Buick. In 1970, the GSX Stage 1 was built as the final boss of muscle car torque. Its 455 CI V8 produced 510 pound-feet of torque, more than any other car in its class, even the Hemi. It was fast, but more importantly, it looked innocent, and that made it deadly on the track. So what happened? In events where cars were grouped by published horsepower ratings, the Buick GSX kept sneaking into lower classes and destroying everything. Race officials started inspecting them more closely and realized Buick had understated the real power output. Stage 1, cars were routinely making over 400 horsepower, and officials weren't having it. So many tracks either bumped them up into tougher classes or banned them from competition altogether. The GSX became an outlaw not because of what it claimed to be, but because of what it actually was. But nothing, and I mean nothing, caused as much chaos as this next car. The Ford Torino Tallaladega was built for one reason: to win NASCAR. And in 1969, it did just that. Ford reshaped the entire front end of the Torino for better aerodynamics, made it longer, lower, and smoother. It looked like a bullet. Powered by the 428 Cobra jet or even a race-prepped Boss 429, the Talladega had the aero and the grunt to dominate super speedways. And for a while, it worked. But then came the Dodge Daytona and Plymouth Superbird. Suddenly, NASCAR became an aero war. Speed skyrocketed. So NASCAR said, enough, and changed the rules. No more special body cars with big block engines. The Talladega, along with all other aero cars, was outlawed from competition. The entire class got erased. But the thing is, none of these cars broke the sport until this one came along. The Plymouth Superbird. Let's be honest, this is the car you came for. Built to bring Richard Petty back to Plymouth, the Superbird was a rolling middle finger to NASCAR rules. Same story as the Dodge Daytona. Huge wing, pointy nose, low drag. It was so fast, they actually had to slow it down in testing, just to avoid blowing past regulations. Petty dominated in it. Fans loved it. Other teams, not so much. NASCAR hit the panic button and introduced new engine size restrictions for aero cars. The Superbird was effectively banned after one season. And here's the wild part. It didn't just get banned, it changed NASCAR forever. They rewrote the rulebook to prevent factory-backed aero dominance ever again. It was too fast, too specialized, too dangerous. And just like that, one of the most iconic muscle cars ever made became illegal on the track it was born for. Much like you were born to own a supercar. But what if I told you that there's some cars hiding in plain sight that actually lap most supercars? Sounds interesting? Make sure to watch this video next, where I break down 10 sleeper cars that will absolutely outpace a Ferrari or a Lambo. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.